Hello, my name is Meredith Nierenberg, and I'm here to tell you my story and how I've been able to make the connection between my academic and professional experiences. And I'm also going to offer an example of how adaptive thinking can be used to nurture micro-enterprises in the US. So my story starts in the fall when we had to choose a topic for our practicum research. And I wanted to pull from both of my academic experiences. So in my undergrad, I studied international relations, and I had an affinity for international economic development models, that particularly ones that focused on women. And then at grad school here, I developed an interest in sustainable investing as well as small business development. So really, the perfect marrying of those two topics was microfinance. Now, I describe microfinance as a bottom-up poverty alleviation strategy that economically and socially empowers individuals, households, and communities by giving them access to financial services and technical assistance that they otherwise would not have. Now, since I know quite a bit about microfinance, I wanted to turn it on its head and look at it in the context of a developed country, the US, and see how it can support entrepreneurs here. And this was also a way for me to address the tension that I have between global and local, my inclination to want to work globally. So this gave me an opportunity to think globally while acting locally, or in this case, learning locally. So, up on the screen is a Wordle of my final synthesis paper. So you could start to see what information I teased out from diving into the research. And across the board, the challenges that I found for microfinance are a lack of standards, a lack of policy, and a lack of regulation to support and guide the industry and market further. In addition, there is a lack of performance metrics, which are really pivotal in helping prove effectiveness and measure impact. So without those, there has been some questioning about whether microfinance can truly alleviate poverty. Now, going to the US context, I definitely found a lot more challenges. So what I found was a fragmented, inefficient, and undercapitalized industry, where surprisingly the microloan was one of the weakest components. So only 1 in 10 entrepreneurs would access a loan, meaning that 90% of the time entrepreneurs were really receiving training and technical assistance. So the conversation of microfinance in the US really shifts more towards microenterprise development. Now, when I honed in on that training component, I also found that there were some weaknesses. Due to the limited capacity of organizations, I found that the training ended up being generic, a one-size-fits-all model. I found it to be focused on the short term, helping businesses get started, and then overall, it really was stagnant. Now, when you add this to the funding environment, you have a multitude of organizations competing for a limited pool of funds, which are already short-term and unreliable. So there really are few opportunities to help organizations improve their offerings. So, despite all of those challenges that I unearthed, I still believe in the power of microfinance to alleviate poverty, to spur economic activity, and also empower individuals. So I'm not giving up on it. And what I really see is how these challenges can be turned into opportunities by giving micro-entrepreneurs what they need through customized training and also stabilizing organizations through seeking financial sustainability. And it was this vision to see these opportunities that really energized me and led me to my spring practicum. So come January, as I was searching for my own opportunities to apply my new learning and energy, I was fortunate to connect with Gateway to Entrepreneurial Tomorrows. I'll refer to them as GET. And they are a 10-year-old nonprofit micro-enterprise development organization that is serving the Hudson Valley. I had the opportunity to sit down with the president, Rob Lunsky, and I posed my idea of helping determine what entrepreneurs really need through a survey, and then use that information to help inform their program offerings. And he smiled and he listened to me and he's like, that's great, but we already do that. So he graciously turned down my offer to help with that. And it was perfect timing because they actually were tackling their own adaptive challenges of expanding their organization through supporting and creating green jobs in the Hudson Valley. Now, due to my professional experience working in the residential energy efficiency sector for 5 years, Get and Rob immediately invited me to help them with this initiative. And I was absolutely blown away about how a perfect combination this was of my academic and professional experience. I don't think I could have planned it better if I tried. Even if I tried really hard, it just worked out that well. So the more time that I spent with Get and talking to Rob, who really has become one of my mentors, I realized that they really were approaching these challenges using adaptive leadership. And for the second half of my presentation, I want to use their example to show you how they have achieved some success. So, if you know anything about adaptive leadership, then you know about Ronald Heifetz. He is really the authority on this topic, and he says the most common cause of failure in leadership is produced by treating adaptive challenges as if they were technical problems. And this ends up being a mistake because the nature of those two are very different. So on one hand, technical challenges can be solved rather quickly with known expertise and with routine answers, whereas adaptive challenges take a lot longer to solve, and they require a systematic approach that engages all stakeholders and determines a new way of thinking of things. Now, I think this directly relates to why microfinance is having such a hard time in the US. It was originally conceived and developed in a completely different context for developing countries, and yet we have organizations applying that same exact model here, in which the context is completely different and they are anticipating the same results. So they are also exacerbating this by just throwing more funds at it and adding more generic products and services that aren't nurturing microenterprises as they should. So I'm going to take the example of Get and how they are approaching their adaptive challenge of trying to create and sustain green jobs in the Hudson Valley, and look at it through the lens of Heifetz's 3 steps to approaching the challenge, which are observe, interpret, and intervene. So Get really observed that the individuals completing the residential energy efficiency technical training were not securing green jobs or starting their own green businesses. In addition, so what they did was they named an important elephant in the room that despite the resources and support from New York State to create green jobs, they just weren't happening. And I think that they were so successful in doing this because they're not entrenched in the industry. They're able to step off the dance floor and get up on the balcony, as Heifetz refers to it, and see the system, recognize the different patterns that were going on, name them, and then communicate them in a non-judgmental way so that others would be receptive. They continue to diagnose the system and identify an opportunity to bridge the gap between that technical training and securing a green job or starting their own business. They engaged all stakeholders, and they put forth their interpretations and ideas to create a sector-specific, customized, business-oriented training curriculum that would complement the default technical training that already exists. Since most adaptive challenges have technical components, they started initiating their intervention by addressing those technical components. So they applied for a grant to receive funding to help initiate this intervention, and they were able to successfully secure $96,000 to train 50 individuals for free. And they are now in the process of initiating their intervention, which resulted in 24 hours of free business-oriented training, in addition to counseling for 50 individuals who are long-term unemployed. So they're able to achieve their mission of helping disadvantaged entrepreneurs as well. And lucky for me, they have brought me in as an ally to help them initiate this training and also complete some of it. So now that I get this opportunity to become a trainer, it's my goal to incorporate systems thinking and adaptive leadership in order to give the trainees the tools and skills to address their own adaptive challenges that they will face as they go into business. And I envision this great landscape in which we could all use adaptive leadership and thinking to move the entire industry forward. So this is just a glimpse of what GET is working on to tackle the challenge of financial, this is just a glimpse of how GET is using adaptive leadership to tackle some of the challenges in their area and grow the organization at the same time. And it's been a really wonderful experience to see what I have learned put into practice. And it has completely solidified my learning and helped me see how I could use it in this industry as well. So, as you can tell, I am very excited about this opportunity to work with GET, to help them with this initiative and also to become a trainer. And my experience with them has helped me see other programs that they are working on that is fueled by the same creative thinking that I just spoke about. So to give you an example, GET has identified a novel way to tackle their challenge of financial sustainability, as well as other adaptive challenges in the Hudson Valley. And what they're doing is completing a green renovation of an abandoned building in the inner city of Newburgh, which is located right on the Hudson River. And what they're going to do is create green, affordable housing and use the rents collected from the tenants to then fund their programs for the next 5 years before they return that building back to the owner. And I think this is just such a great example of securing stable funds as well as employing the triple bottom line in the Hudson Valley, in which they can tackle community revitalization, they could secure more resources to help more disadvantaged entrepreneurs, and they can also protect the environment through smart, green building investments. So, once again, I am fortunate enough for GET to incorporate me into that specific project in which they are asking me to help them get this first project off the ground and create an ongoing program that continues to rehab, revitalize, and secure additional sources to fund their programs and help them grow. And I most certainly will be using all that I have learned here at Antioch to ensure that that project is successful and that GET has even more success over their next 10 years. So to end, I do want to come back to my story of how I've been able to make these connections in my life. And what Antioch has really done is help me see the system in which I formed and how all the pieces fit together. And without realizing, all the different components have related back to something that I had done before. And as I leave Antioch, I am very fulfilled having made those meaningful connections. And having made those meaningful connections while still expanding my sphere of influence and setting out on a new but yet familiar path forward. So thank you so much for listening.